Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Tonight's video, I'll be doing a little change of my oil drain here. So when I bought my CXRACING Turbo a few years ago, it came with this style of oil drain. It's a barb fitting to go on a rubber hose, or you might be able to get it on a braided hose as well. But I have AN fittings on mine, so I ordered one of these because, well, I retrofitted the old one to work by drilling the holes center more, and it worked. But this one here is meant for the AN. It's meant for the bottom of my turbo. This one's smaller than the one that came off my Turbonetics, and then it comes with its gasket as well. Picked this up from eBay for about 15 bucks maybe, and I did because I have a leak in my turbo that's smoking on the exhaust or on the header. So what I'm going to end up doing is taking it apart and putting this new gasket in. So here's the CXRACING Turbo. If you've seen my videos before, I did a review on it. I find it to be quite efficient and very cost effective. I like this turbo. It spools up pretty quickly. It's just all around a pretty good turbo for the price. I think I paid 600 Canadian for it. And yeah, so anyway, back to what the actual video is about. So you can't really, oh, maybe you can. So down there, you can see the oil drain with the little red anodized aluminum fitting. So what I got to do is get those two Allen bolts off and change that gasket technically, but I might just pull the whole turbo off and replace it on the workbench because it looks like it's a little hairy down there. I can't remember how I did it, so I didn't record removing the turbo. If you've installed your own or whatnot, you'll basically know how to do it. It's a systematic thing of just starting from the top and working your way down type thing, removing all the bolts and whatnot. So the reason I have my turbo off is because I need to put this new oil drain on, and my old gasket was stuck on there pretty good, so I stuffed a rag in this little oil drain hole, and I used, because this is cast iron, you can do this, I wouldn't do it on aluminum, but I used a wire wheel to zip all that off there, nice and smooth, as you can see, nice and clean, good surface. And I've got this new gasket. I'm going to put a little RTV on it to help seal it to there, and then reinstall it back on the car. So the reason that I'm changing my oil drain is because this is the one that I had for my Turbonetics. I re-drilled it so that it would work. These bolts came loose over time, and this is the one that came with my CXRACING Turbo. It's just got a barbed fitting, and I wanted an AN fitting. I think it looks cleaner and might be stronger. So over here you can see my turbine housing. I left that on the car. I have 5 bolts that hold it in. I can't get the bottom one, no big deal. The coolant lines, which are banjo. And here's the AN fitting for the oil return to the sump. And you've got your oil feed line that goes on the top. So from what I can tell, this turbo's been on my car for about 2 years now. It's working pretty good. It is running a little hot. I need to get bigger injectors, so I'm not going to run any more boost than I already have on it. There's no oil in the charge pipe at all. There's a little oil around the boot, but that was from the drain leaking down. So I'm going to go ahead, get this all set up, and then reinstall it back on the car and take it out for a couple burns, and hopefully it will hopefully it won't be leaking anymore. I mean, I'm positive it won't. I'm considering painting my snail shell too. I don't know, just for cosmetic appeal while I have it off the car. hours for the RTV to set up. There we go. There's one side there. That should help it adhere to the surface. Just because the reason that I'm changing this technically is because the bolt came loose last time. So you can't really see, but so like I said, you can't really see, but inside this hole here, you want to make sure that that drain is as straight down as possible. One thing I noticed with this turbo setup, or my own personal self, is that I'm taking a lot better care. I'm learning more as I go along. Taking a lot better care to make sure that I'm doing my oil changes on time, that there are no that the oil is not coking and gumming up the inside of the turbo. So with this, you're going to want to make sure you kind of go down in stages just to bring them both down the same. Another thing is, if you don't have this hole straight through to the turbo, you're probably going to get seepage eventually through that gasket when it starts to fail. Or you might shorten the life of that gasket. You want to be careful not to bend your turbine fins. I'm not pushing down hard on the actual turbo. So that's pretty well it there for the drain install. Then you're just going to reinstall it back on the car. Technically with the RTV you want to let it set for about an hour and then tighten it down the rest of the way, but in this application I don't think it's going to really matter. It's not making the seal. The seal's actually already there. I just kind of used it to help the seal out a bit. Or I used it so it'll fail in the future. We'll see. Overall, I'm really impressed with the CXRACIng Turbo's build. It's very tight. The turbo spools up fast. The bearing's still great after all this time of boosting hard and whatnot. And yeah, I'm just super impressed with it. And the price point is unbeatable almost. I mean, if you have to replace it after 2 years or 3 years, $600, not that bad. And then for you folks in the States, it'll be a lot cheaper. I actually had to pay shipping, like good amount of shipping to get it to Canada, duties and all that other crap at the border. So, like I said, CXRACIng Turbo, pretty freaking great. So I'm gonna figure out what I'm gonna do with this turbo. I'm gonna look at the photos of my car and see what color I should paint it if I'm going to, and then I'll figure that out later today. So now I'm getting ready to reassemble my turbo. The CHRA is going to go back into the snail shell, and then it'll go back onto the turbine on the car. I decided that while I had it apart, I would paint the snail shell a nice metal spec blue from Duplicolor. I was going to do anodized aluminum blue, but I didn't really like how it was turning out, so I did a base coat of anodized, and then I did a top coat of metal spec blue. One thing I didn't note earlier was that when I took the turbo apart, I marked where it was, so I scribed it. So I put a couple scratches in the housing and in the snail shell and in the backer plate, so that I could not have to clock my turbo again after painting it. So the nuts and bolts, or the bolts that I painted, I'm just gonna put out of the way because I do like the idea of the shiny steel ones as opposed to like a fully painted setup. I could accent color it. You could do whatever you want, really. So yeah, basically I'm going to assemble the turbo, not rebuild. I don't think this turbo is necessarily ready for a rebuild yet. There's no play, there's no smoke, there's no oil passing into the compressor housing or anything, so I'm going to run it for another year most likely. I'll just try to keep like a backup fund aside for in case something happens to it, because like at 600 bucks Canadian for this, it's definitely pretty good bang for your buck. Right, good to go there. I didn't do it hard with the impact. You don't want to strip your screws. I mean, if you do, you just have to drill it out, tap it. It's a big pain in the ass, or a bit of a pain in the ass. So, but you want to make sure that they're tight. You don't want your turbine housing coming apart on you. Probably try to avoid the painted surface that just cured. Alright, so that's my turbo, ready to go back in the car, sort of. But I think I'm going to put the drain on outside of the vehicle, because it was a little bit of a trick. I might not be able to see it because it's kind of dark. So there's the drain right there. These rubbed up against the housing, so if I take it apart at the AN fitting there, I can assemble it on the workbench. So it doesn't hurt while you have this stuff all apart to give it a little wipe down. Nobody really sees this stuff anyway because it's underneath. But yeah, I'm just kind of cleaning it up here a little bit. And then you kind of want to pay attention to the orientation of your drain. Yeah, because once it's locked into place, you don't want to have to undo it to get it to where it should go. So I'm going to double check to make sure. Yeah, the orientation is opposite. So the charge pipe goes this way, then the drain goes this way. I mean, it's not a big deal to have to re-clock it, you could say. But why make more? Why make more work for yourself, right? Get that nice and tight so no leaks. As you can see, my AN fitting is a little mashed. I don't have an AN wrench. I have a 1-inch wrench that I cut off to do the job. So that's all ready to go back on the car. Try not to scratch it. As tight as it gets. Okay. So you got your coolant lines here. Not all turbos come with are liquid cooled or whatever. You've got your oil feed line here, which that was leaking at one point as well. You got to hook up your charge pipe. You want to hook up your vacuum line to the bottom of the front of your turbo. Alright. So I'm not sure where the camera cut off, but basically I hooked up the oil drain, and now I'm wrestling with the turbine to get it into its housing. Might need a little sandpaper to... Might need a little bit of sandpaper to just kind of clear up or get the mounting ring surface clean. All right. Come on. What is blocking this? Ow, fuck. Alright. So by the looks of it, my oil drain needs to be clocked a little bit. More to the front. Alright, let's try this. Now it should just slide right in. Just slide right in. Just slide right in. Just slide right in. It should just slide right in. Right in. Right in. Right in. Just like that, sort of. Okay. So, a little bit like that should be good. tight. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and hook up the coolant lines, the oil feed, the charge pipe. I've already got the, what do you call that? The vacuum, like the boost T hooked in. So it shouldn't take long to put this back together. And I got to put the 5 bolts all around the housing here. And then that's it. Bob's your uncle. So when I turn the camera on next, I'll probably be possibly smoking tires off this thing.